hopefully if we follow some of these, we'd avoid the angst and problems we had. And a lot of it was just communications. Some commissioners knew some of the facts, some didn't, and that caused some issues. And having to dig through the budget and find things. Where if we'd had a cover sheet explaining anything that was different, it would have been very helpful and probably improved the process. So if you just take a minute to read through them, I'd be glad to answer any questions on any of the things. These are just thoughts that came to me. This is revision 5. Actually had some inputs from some elected officials that changed this slightly from my original draft.
You also have in front of you the timeline of the budget and all the meetings. Our first meeting was February 1st, 2023, and the budget packets were distributed to the individual departments right after that. On February 28th, budget packets were completed and due, and turned into accounts and budget. March 1st to the 31st, Director of Accounts and Budgets worked with us, and we met with the individual department heads to finalize those. And on April 6, 2023, the budget was presented to the Budget Committee. On April 27, 2023, the Budget and Finance Committee, Coffee County Schools budget was presented. On June 13, 2023, the presentation of the 2024 budget to the full commission at the regular meeting. And June 27, 2023, vote on 2024 proposed budget at the full commission meeting. And then the various all the minutes from every budget meeting are also attached. Just I failed to mention that. That's the two handouts you have. But thank you, Commissioner Morris. And the floor is open for discussion. If anyone wants to raise their hand to discuss something. Chairman Seaborn.
Let me just make a couple comments about the schedule, which I know it seems like when you look at this calendar and you see presentation all the way down in June, that seems late, but we actually start having full presentation of a draft budget way back, usually late March, early April. And this coming year, we should have the camera systems up and running in the committee rooms, correct?
They are up and running.
So they're up now.
Yeah.
So I think we were the last ones to have a meeting when they weren't working. And so I think one of the things you should be able to do next year is immediately be able to watch that at your convenience, the committee meetings where that budget's getting presented. And I think we've always, well, I shouldn't say we've always, but I'm pretty sure at times we have distributed a preliminary budget to everybody, and we can always do that pretty easily, I think, because you're already distributing it to half the commissioners now, with half the commissioners being on the budget committee. So I'm hopeful that part can be better next year. I have heard a few people say, well, we need to back the schedule up even more, but I mean, if you look at this now, they're already starting at department level 4 months ahead of time. If you back it up too much, you don't even know what your current year budget looking like, and you're already trying to plan next year's budget. So you can't start too early, I don't think. But hopefully this schedule looks okay. The other comment, I just wanted to make a couple comments. You know, there was a lot of discussion about the pay raise issues, and I think everybody's heard me say it, but I'll just reiterate it again here. We don't have a clear-cut pay process, and we haven't had since I've been on the commission. We did used to have a pay schedule, a step and raise schedule, but it wasn't being followed. And so it's a bit of a challenge as the chairman and the committee members, I think, to know how to do that in such a way that everybody's going to say we did it the right way. We've got a lot of criticism for how we did it, and I understand that because it can be hard to see. And things are changing as the budget process goes on. So I don't know, I'm not saying I have a good solution for that next year other than to try to be as transparent and as open as possible. I do think the mayor explained multiple times in committee meetings what he thought the source of those raise requests were, the individual ones that were more than the standard that we were trying to put in the budget. And I'm certainly trying to think through next year how we might do that a little bit. I think Claude had a recommendation in here maybe of doing, you know, flat raise at first and then additional raises after the fact so that you could discuss them. We could discuss them before the fact too. It becomes a matter sometimes of whether, if you're going to have a big impact on your budget, you're probably going to want to consider it ahead of time. If it's just onesie twosies, then maybe it works better. But the bottom line is everybody just needs to be able to communicate how those raises are being set. And I held off a little bit this year on some of that discussion simply because I've always felt uncomfortable when it comes down to individuals, talking about an individual person's pay in a public meeting. And I know everybody's salary is public record, but at the same time, I don't want to, you know, cause people undue grief talking about them and their public pay in public. So maybe I just need to get over that. But regardless, hopefully we can do better on that next year. I'd beg your patience with us as we go through it. And mostly I would encourage, if you have questions about it, try to submit them as early as possible. We'll try to get the information out as early as possible. And watch us on YouTube. You can do that from your couch if your spouse will put up with it.
And thank you. And we all can learn some lessons. One thing I will do next year is department heads. This year, a lot of them didn't want to stand before the budget committee and present. They talked to us in our office and had us fill the packets out. Next year, everyone will have to present personally. I don't care if they're nervous. I don't care if they're scared. They're going to have to stand up there and do it themselves instead of asking me to do it on their behalf. So that's something I'll do.
I think by doing that, you know, we deliberately didn't do that this year also just because it had been an issue in past years and we were trying to see if we could do it without doing that. But I think it'll also help some of the questions like Claude mentioned about, well, why is this request in here? If they get up and speak it in person, then you should be able to go watch that on the video and hear it for yourself. I'm trying to not get in a position where the chairman or secretary would have to spend hours writing up detailed descriptions of every request that happens in the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. That's a lot of work, and our committee members already spend a lot of time doing that committee as it is. And I feel like if we've got a recording of it, that should satisfy that need.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
A
Mr. Hunt.
question, you said next year they would have to come before you personally
No, the
or
committee.
the full legislative body?
The budget committee with their presentations.
Okay.
Mr. Hirschman.
I'm going to suggest that all the commissioners try to make that meeting because that's where we're not being informed, and I think that would help us a lot, the ones who are not on the committee. And that way, when it comes time to pass this, we should already be informed. We should know everything that's there. And not speaking bad about how we went by this last process, but that's kind of why I did not vote for it, because it was a little bit confusing, where I don't like confusion, especially when it comes down to spending our taxpayers' money.
Well, sure.
And I think if we're informed and we go to those meetings, I'm not saying watch it on, I think we need to be present. I really do. That way we'll be informed. I don't think it's a issue with Dennis. I'm there with us both being out of the same district. I just think that, you know, we ought to take a little bit more time and maybe join that meeting. That's just my opinion. Now, as far as the dates on this, these dates are coinciding with what the state regulates as far as our budget dates. I believe that's correct, Lynn.
That's the minimum we have to do.
Yes.
Yes. That's correct. And a good point on attending the meetings, obviously, and the minutes. The minutes from every meeting were posted the next day, also for your review on the web. Took a while to get the cameras. What took so long in the hearing rooms is we were insisting on American-made equipment, and that's very hard to get, very hard. We didn't want any Chinese or anything else equipment in this room. Everything is American-made, done with American servers, and it took a while to get that stuff in, get it installed. But this one was our priority. The other two took a little longer. Yes, sir. Mr. Hodge.
Mr. Mayor, I, being a freshman commissioner, have been trying to study into the process of the budget. And one of the questions that I have and still don't have clarity on is how much can we determine for each department line by line? As a commissioner, I understood the department head or the elected official to be in charge of their budget. They would submit line by line just to justify their request. But how much leeway do we have in adjusting that? I thought we just either approved it or disapproved it as a full commission.
For the salaries, that's correct. For some other things such as equipment, there's some things that we can do, but for the actual salary, what the employees are paid, I signed what's called a salary agreement. The elected official will bring me that agreement, and it should state how many employees they have and what the gross payroll is. And they're not supposed to go outside of those confines. Where we ran into problems with a couple departments is they had the gross amount of money, but they didn't have the maximum number of employees, so they were bonusing that money out. CTASC did not tell us that was illegal, but they did say it was unethical. Yes.
So along that same line, I always have trouble remembering what is liable there and not with elected officials especially. And so one of the things I'm going to do for myself, and I'll just drop this as a hint if you want, I haven't taken my training yet this year that's due by the end of this month, and I'm going to go try to find one of the trainings that discusses that very topic so I can remind myself and as I generate questions. But if people have questions about that, about what we can do versus what elected officials can do with the budget, I think we need to work on that as a group, maybe with assistance of our council, so that we all understand that, because I think that would help, number one. Number two, we do have to have those detailed individual lines. That's a part of the audit process. If you'll go out in the state, if you go out on Tennessee.gov and search for county audits, you can see every county's full budget from the previous audited year in excruciating detail. And they want all those budget lines because that's how they check to make sure we're spending our money legally and properly. So even if we didn't care whether we were specifying it to the department head or not, the comptroller's office wants to see those line details. And so that's another reason why we have all that in there. And it's, kind of painful to go through.
It's a unique process. There's a amount of respect that has to be given to each elected official, but we still have an ultimate say-so over the macro budget. Absolutely.
Thank you. I knew we needed to know the details.
Yes.
So justification for there, but I didn't know how much we could go in and adjust their budget for them as opposed to what they were presenting.
Yep. Correct. Talking about, yes, sir, Commissioner Hunt.
Anybody else want to speak before I speak twice?
Go ahead, sir.
The one thing I've said this once before, but it bears repeating. I serve on a lot of committees. That's extra time that us as individuals spend on committees working stuff out. Budget and finance is one of those. And I was always amazed at the job that the Budget and Finance Committee did before I was a member of it. And this is worth repeating. If only 7 members of the full legislative body made up the Budget and Finance Committee when we had 21 commissioners. We now have 18 commissioners. Half of them serve on the Budget and Finance. In other words, 50% of this legislative body is making these decisions in committee, and the other half, as Commissioner Hurstman pointed out, should attend the meetings. If they don't understand what those the members of the Budget and Finance Committee have come up with and presenting to you, you'll know if you just go to the meetings. Now that we're live streaming, you can actually sit in the comfort of your own home and watch every meeting. We just live streamed a Planning Commission meeting, and I think our first, the capital outlay, I think, was the first committee meeting live streamed at the first week of this month. So it's, I just looked at the Planning Commission meeting. We had 2 people watching it. So there'll be more because it's there forever, and there'll be more people watching it just like all of us can. But I've always trusted the work of committee. I've never liked to sit in here and second guess all the people that spent their time, whether it's planning, BZA, legislative, rural roads, all of these individual committees, on and on and on. The work that they do, you really need to trust them. And it's proper to ask questions, but trust their work, because I do feel like we have always had competent individuals in all the committee assignments that our previous administration and this administration have got for us. That's all I need to say.
Thank you. Now, I think the previous budget committee just had 5, actually, of 21, not 7. It was 5, yes, sir.
Our planning commission is seven.
Planning commission is 7, correct?
That's a terrible, that is terrible. Okay.
Is that Hawk, yeah.
Just so I say it out loud, I was wrong.
So the whole process,
It's on video now.
we have a lot of new folks, so there is a learning curve, but the whole process was put together in hopes that there would be more access to it. The videos, the minutes online, more members present. That's what we're trying to accomplish, and sometimes it's rough making sausage, but we're wide open to critique and criticisms and to making the positive changes too. But is there anybody that sits on budget and finance now that you don't have to tell me tonight, but if you don't want to serve for another year, you can let us know, and in September we can put your legislative partner in there. That's just up to you if it is too much of a time constraint, or so just keep that in mind. We can do that too. Yes, sir, Commissioner Morris.
Does anybody have any comments on the ideas I put forward? Thoughts, whatever.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
And number 6 on that list, the budget should be developed earlier and a first draft presented to commission in May. That would seem appropriate the 1st of May. I mean, the budget is a proposal, and we're looking at, what might happen. And of course, we have the process of amendment as things change during the year. But if we were as a commission to get this 1st of May, so that we have opportunity to look at that and review it, because I had many constituents that came to me and said, what's this about in the budget? There just wasn't enough time to find out about that information. And I love the process that we've got video and the minutes and things. I appreciate that. And that helps me to be able to go find that information and to share that with the constituents.
Actually, Commissioner, April 6th is when we presented the budget of this year. Now, there were some changes that occurred, some given and some taken, but 99% or 99.9% of the gross budget of the county was presented on April 6th, 2023, and April 27th was the school system. So we probably need, instead of May, stick with April still, and come in a little soon, continue to come in as soon as possible. And by then, we've got our revenue projections pretty well shaped up.
Well, again, in my ignorance of learning
No.
the offense and didn't know that, and what I received was that 2 weeks before we were to vote on it, and at that point, I thought, we're on track. There's nothing we can do to stop this.
Well,
Wanna
I'm
change
glad,
it.
I'm glad to make sure that we're getting out the information as fast as we can.
Yeah, I was gonna
Thank
say, and I mentioned that earlier, I don't think we distributed a packet to every single person by the day, but that information was available. It's gonna be more available next year, and we can always distribute an early packet at that time. You just have to keep in mind that it is an early packet, that it's not final. And then I'd also just like to comment, the budget's not final until we pass it. And so, if you had 2 weeks ahead of time, you got a question, you still got time to try to make a change to the budget. If you don't like it, understand that you might have trouble understanding what you want to change in that short amount of time. But I think we can easily make that information available for everybody. It's already been made available for half the committee, so there shouldn't be any reason why we can't make it available for the whole committee.
Sure we can, yep, sure we can. Yes, sir, Commissioner Morris.
I really like that, Commissioner Seaborn, that, we all get a copy of it, not just the 9 on the committee, but all 18 get a copy of it early on, so we can start to look at it and understand it, and ask questions, and we're not being jammed up against a time deadline.
Well, I always want to respect the committee process. I think making sure that everybody that's on a specific committee, that they see the resolutions, they see the business that comes before them, whether it be legislative policies and procedures. I don't want to usurp any committee, and I don't want to move unnecessarily fast at all. So, you know, like I said, anything, and I like to keep this week's notice between meetings. Everybody, it gives the public time, it gives us time to prepare. The state says we don't have to take 7 days, but with 7 days, it stays very clean that way. And you've all done a great job in helping me do that and being patient with that. Sometimes you want to put something on schedule Tuesday so you can get it passed on Thursday instead of waiting the next Tuesday, but that's just the price you pay to try to be open as you can.
Mayor, I did want to make,
Yes, sir.
I did want to make one comment about one of Claude's, number 5 there, Claude. I heard a couple people say something like this, that we should put explanations in the spreadsheet. And I'm opposed to that for the simple reason that Mariana has enough time trying to keep those spreadsheets nice and clean because she uses those as part of her material for her audit purposes. I think the proper thing to do there is put those explanations you're asking for in a clear set of minutes or a summary document. But I don't think we need to put it in the official spreadsheet because the
Mr. Morris.
Yeah, our cover sheet on top of the budget explaining those deviations, that would have solved a lot of the problems this year.
yeah, we can do that.
I know it takes a lot of time to go to those committee meetings, and you guys put in a lot of horsepower. I appreciate that. All the committees have done well. We've got a lot of balls we're juggling, from the health department to animal shelter to potential new health insurance plans. We've got the mega site coming online. Just an incredible amount of growth, nothing but opportunities in this county, and appreciate everybody working hard and pulling in the same direction. Sam and I, if you come up with some more ideas or you didn't bring them up tonight, you know, holler at us tomorrow or something and let us know. Before we move on to the next item, any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to number 8, which is statements and announcements. Do we have any statements or announcements? Yes, sir, Commissioner Seaborn.
Budget meeting Thursday evening at 5.
That's right. It starts. Okay. Any additional statements or announcements?
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I attended a budget and finance meeting, training seminar that Heather Duncan and Ben put on, and I would suggest that if the commissioners would like to have that done, I can have it arranged where we can have that done here. They will come in and do that for free. It's a 2-night class, 2 hours for each class. You get 4 hours of training time. We can do that, you know, after this year goes by. After this August is passed, that way it'll go into next year's credits for
That'd be
anybody who
fine.
needs it.
Whatever you'd like to do, you can put
But,
that together, we'll put word out.
If we would like to do that, just let me know and we can set that up.
Sure. Any additional statements or announcements? Our next meeting will be September 12th. That's going to be a regular commission meeting and regular scheduled business. Seeing no further statements of announcements, do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. We're adjourned.